The muscular, red-haired man smirked, his expression dripping with a mix of disdain and calculation. When it comes to deviousness, he mused, he can't compare to those disciples of aristocratic families. They are actually so ruthless as to harm their own people. He leaned back, satisfied with the deal struck. Pleasure doing business. If there is news, I will send a carrier pigeon to you. Outside, the air was thick with the dust of activity. Workers hurried to load heavy wooden crates onto horse-drawn wagons. A shout rang out over the courtyard, signaling the urgency of their departure. Everyone, look sharp. The merchant caravan is about to set off. Amidst the chaos, the second young master approached, his stride purposeful and his face a mask of cold authority. He was flanked by an attendant in purple as he stepped toward the center of the loading area. A man bowed low, his hands clasped in a respectful greeting. This servant is Zhang Quan, the caravan steward. Greetings, second young master. The young master didn't waste time with pleasantries. Who is in charge of this caravan right now? Of course, it is under your charge, second young master, steward Zhang replied with a forced, oily smile. Since it is under my charge, the young master countered, his voice dropping to a dangerous level. Then who allowed you to load the cargo and set off just now? He stepped closer, looming over the steward. How much silver did the last batch of goods sell for? What was brought back? What is being transported in this batch? Have you ever discussed these with me? Steward Zhang's smile didn't falter, though a bead of sweat threatened to break. Second young master, please forgive me, because you were not present. I asked for instructions from the family head before acting. He closed his eyes, his tone dismissive yet veiled in politeness. Time waits for no one. Rest assured, second young master, there will be absolutely no problems with this trip. If there are any mishaps, I am at your disposal. The second young master reached out, placing a firm, almost patronizing hand on the steward's shoulder. A thin, sharp smile touched his lips. Steward Zhang, what you've done is very well. I just hope you won't regret it. Zhang Quan bowed even deeper, his eyes gleaming with hidden intent. Thank you for the praise, second young master. Working for the Chu family, this servant will never regret it. Steward Zhang's face remained a mask of polite indifference, but inwardly, he scoffed at the young master's parting words. I have gone back and forth with the caravan countless times, he thought, his eyes narrowing with a sense of untouchable security. What problem could there be? What is there to regret? The second young master turned his back on the steward, his voice cold and final. Then I wish you good luck. As he walked away, he didn't look back at the line of wagons beginning their journey. Instead, he signaled to his trusted subordinate in purple. Notify Han Bao and his men of the caravan's route and schedule, he commanded. Yes, the man replied, bowing before hurrying off to execute the order. Soon, the caravan was well on its way, the heavy wooden carts creaking along a winding dirt road lined with lush green trees. Riding at the head of the line, a guard looked over at Zhang with concern. Old Zhang, you've offended the second young master to death, he whispered. I heard that after returning from the mining area, the second young master is different. Zhang Quan let out a dismissive chuckle, leaning back in his saddle. Of course I know, but don't forget, we are the third young master's people. The guard wasn't so easily swayed. Aren't you afraid the second young master will deal with us? The Chu family is a great clan and must follow rules, Zhang countered with arrogant confidence. We haven't broken any rules, so Chu Xiu can't touch us. While Zhang remained smug, the guard fell into a pensive silence, his hand moving to his chin. I just feel like this matter isn't that simple, he worried, his brow furrowed as he scanned the dense foliage ahead. Aware of the potential dangers of the road, Zhang Quan raised his hand to signal the rest of the crew. His voice turned stern as he issued a final warning. Everyone remember, if we really encounter bandits, drop the goods immediately. Lives are more important than anything. Yes, the men shouted in unison, their voices echoing through the quiet forest as the caravan moved deeper into the shadows. Hours bled into night, and a full moon hung high over the jagged silhouettes of the mountains. Zhang Quan led the group through the shadows, his eyes scanning the path ahead. Walk a bit further, there's a decent-sized cave ahead. We'll rest there, he instructed. Suddenly, a booming voice tore through the silence of the woods. No need to walk anymore. If you want to hurry there, rest here to your heart's content. Torches flared to life in the darkness, illuminating the terrifying silhouettes of armed men blocking the path. Zhang Quan's heart hammered against his ribs as he stared into the flickering light. It's bandits. Run, he screamed, his face contorting in pure terror. The discipline of the caravan shattered instantly, men scrambled off their horses and fled into the trees, leaving the cargo behind. Zhang Quan tried to scramble away, but a group of shirtless, muscular men, swords resting casually on their shoulders, stepped into his path. "Steward Zhang, where did you think you're going?" one of them sneered. Zhang's breath hitched in his throat as he realized these weren't ordinary highwaymen. You were prepared?" The man leading the group, Han Bao, stepped forward with a lethal grin. "Zhang Quan, right? Young Master Chu Xiu asked me to pass you a message. Steward Zhang, have a safe journey to the afterlife." The blood drained from Zhang's face. The memory of the second young master's cold gaze flashed through his mind. It was the second young master. Before he could even beg for mercy, the massive blade of a broadsword caught the moonlight, swinging toward him with a terrifying whistle. "No!" The cry was cut short as the steel descended. The cold gleam of a blade was the last thing Steward Zhang saw. Panic contorted his features, his teeth bared in a final, futile grimace as the steel descended. With a swift, decisive strike, the intruder ended the life of the man who had dared to cross Chu Xiu. "Go, open the cargo," a voice commanded, sharp and indifferent. "Let's see how the greeting gift young Master Chu gave us is." As the heavy gates of the compound creak open, the news of the massacre spread like a wildfire through the night air. An announcement rang out, cold and official: the caravan had been robbed and all members killed. The survivors were ordered to return to the guards' hall immediately to discuss the gravity of the situation. Amidst the chaos, two figures walked through the moonlit courtyard. The young man looked toward his mother, his brow furrowed in suspicion. "Mother, do you think this matter has anything to do with Chu Xiu?" He lowered his voice, the weight of the implication heavy between them. Steward Guan and the others just offended Chu Xiu, and then, something like this happened. His mother kept her gaze fixed forward, her expression unreadable. "I don't know," she replied softly. "Logically speaking, Chu Xiu shouldn't have the guts. Besides, he shouldn't have the ability to hire the Shanzhai mountain bandits." She paused, her eyes narrowing as they approached the main hall. "Before we have evidence, don't speak carelessly. Otherwise, it will make the master unhappy." "Yes," the son murmured, falling into step behind her. They entered the grand hall, where the atmosphere was thick with tension. At the far end, seated upon a high throne, the master of the house looked down upon his subjects. The room was filled with murmurs and the hushed rustle of robes as the survivors recounted the horror. "That is the situation," a voice reported to the gathered assembly. "They killed everyone on sight. We don't know anything else." The master remained silent for a long moment, his presence looming over the room like a dark cloud. Finally, he spoke, his voice echoing with a chilling finality. "Since that's the case, dismissed. Remember this lesson, be more careful next time. I'm going back into seclusion." As the master rose to leave, a young man in blue robes stepped forward, his back to the room but his resolve clear. "Father, right now the caravan has no leader," he declared, his voice ringing with ambition. "I am willing to lead the caravan through Shanzhai Mountain once again." A ripple of shock passed through the hall as Chu Xiu's declaration hung in the air. Eyes widened and whispers ceased. The idea of the family's young master taking on such a perilous task was unthinkable to those gathered. The master of the house turned, his gaze sharpening as he looked at his son. "Caravan transport has always been the most dangerous," he stated, his voice laced with skepticism. "Family disciples have never led the team before. What kind of trouble are you adding? You have no experience at all. Do you want to die?" Chu Xiu did not flinch. He bowed deeply, his hands clasped in a gesture of utmost respect. "Right now, the caravan is in a state of panic," he argued, his tone steady and convincing. "If there isn't someone of sufficient weight to lead, it will be difficult to set out. Especially the pharmacy goods, they cannot be delayed. As a direct descendant of the Chu family, I should lead the charge and boost morale. I ask Father for permission." The master fell silent, his hand going to his chin as he weighed the request. He hadn't expected Chu Xiu to possess such a high level of awareness or responsibility. Yet, the logic was sound, the caravan indeed could not afford a delay. "Then you go. Be careful," the master finally conceded. "Thank you for your concern, Father," Chu Xiu replied, his expression remaining composed as he secured his objective. As Chu Xiu prepared to depart, the other disciples watched him with a mixture of disbelief and calculation. One young man watched his back, a sneer tugging at his lips. To actually snatch up this thankless and dangerous task, he thought privately, is Chu Xiu's brain broken? Outside, the atmosphere remained heavy. Servants and guards huddled in the moonlight, their faces pale as they discussed the tragedy. Can't blame them for pointing and discussing us, one remarked solemnly. This time the goods weren't saved, and quite a few people died. His companion nodded, looking over his shoulder at the dark shadows of the compound. Yeah, this time was too scary. Their somber reflection was shattered by Chu Xiu's arrival in the courtyard. Pack up, everyone, he commanded, his voice cutting through the gloom. The caravan is setting off again. We're going to the state of Yen. The guards recoiled in disbelief. Second young master, we just had an incident, one stammered. We should rest for a period of time no matter what. Another chimed in, desperate for a reprieve. Yeah, let's think of a countermeasure. What if we enter the mountain and get robbed by bandits again? Chu Xiu's expression hardened into a mask of cold fury. Rest for a while. Think of a countermeasure, he spat, his eyes flashing. It's simply a joke. The ones who died weren't you. You didn't even suffer a scratch. What are you resting for? He stepped forward, his presence looming over the hesitant men. Thought you could just stay silent in the Chu family business. The caravan treatment is the best. 10 times that of general labor, or even more. He turned his back on them, his voice dropping to a dangerous chill. Since you are afraid of death and don't want to go, there are plenty of people who do. He looked toward a nearby attendant. Go, tell the general laborers. Those who dare to risk their lives, come to the caravan. Monthly pay is at least 10 taels. If they return smoothly, 0.5% of the profit will be the reward. As for the trembling guards before him, he dismissed them with a flick of his hand. As for these people, go find Steward Lin for reassignment. The reality of losing their lucrative positions hit the guards instantly. Second young master, just now I was blinded by folly. Please give me a chance, one pleaded, bowing low in a desperate attempt to salvage his status. Chu Xiu didn't even look back. There is only one opportunity, he declared, walking toward the waiting wagons. Those who want to stay, follow me. Moments later, the heavy wheels of the caravan creaked into motion, rolling out of the compound under the pale moonlight, headed toward a dangerous and uncertain horizon. The night air hung heavy with the threat of violence as a group of bandits blocked the path. At the head of the mob stood a hulking man, identified by a floating prompt as Feng Meng, a subordinate of Han Bao. He brandished a heavy blade, his voice booming with ruthless intent. Little ones, come out. Business is here, he roared. Kill the people, leave the goods. Behind the safety of their defenses, the travelers felt the cold prickle of dread. One man, sweat beading on his brow, gritted his teeth in frustration. Damn it, again, he hissed, his voice trembling. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have stayed. Beside him, his companion offered a grim nod, his eyes wide with the realization of their predicament. Yeah, I'm regretting it a bit too, he admitted, his gaze fixed on the encroaching shadows. Hope we can survive and go back this time too. However, amidst the rising panic of the caravan, a lone figure remained unshaken. Clad in blue robes with his hair pulled back in a high ponytail, he watched the bandits with a chilling calm. A sharp, confident smirk played on his lips as his eyes narrowed, gleaming with an intensity that bordered on predatory. Finally, he whispered to himself, the anticipation thick in his voice. It's showtime.